This is the final clip in a short introductory series on the topic of leadership capability to achieve organisational goals. In the first clip, we looked at leadership capability required in the past. In the last clip, the middle clip, we looked at my interpretation of leadership capability requirement now. And now we're going to look ahead, some of the major themes that I anticipate leaders are going to need to be preparing themselves for and navigating in order to succeed and drive organisational success in the future. So the first one is virtual leadership. I mean, we do see this now, it's not uncommon, it's been around for a long time, but I think the extent to which leadership is going to rely on the virtual environment is only going to increase. I see this now in my business. My company is based in Sydney, in Australia. It's a big country. We've got practitioners and practice leaders in 5 different cities, states. And a part of our business, on the west coast of America as well. And I live in the virtual environment. Most of my team interactions, are like this, right? Through a screen, through a camera. And I think for more and more leaders, that is going to be the way rather than the minority. You are not going to spend as much time as you have in the past with your team physically. So how you build team performance, how you create culture, how you influence and develop people online, virtually, or when we get there with augmented reality and in a virtual environment in the truest sense, that is all going to be very, very different to how you lead today. This is not tomorrow, it might be 2-5 years away, but more than that, I think is unlikely to be similar to where we are today. So that really is just a big one in terms of having the ability, especially with emotional intelligence and so forth, to really work and be conscious of how to get the best out of people when you're not physically with them as much as you might be today. The other just big topic then is leadership and technology. There's an enormous wave of technological innovation and enhancement that's very close to hitting, again with augmented reality, virtual reality environments, but even things like Slack and Jabber, these sort of work-based social platforms, that is making leadership far more complicated from a productivity perspective, complicated from an impact and influence perspective, and there's just going to be more of this, right? This is not going to stop. So when we look at AI, let's talk about AI for 10 seconds, what is a centaur team? How are you going to lead a team where half is human and half is AI, or some majority-minority balance between the two? Now, most leaders don't have the answer to that question right now. They haven't had the opportunity to experience that. But that is going to be the reality of leadership, again, in 2, 5, 10 years. It is coming. That's going to make leadership far more complicated with a different set of capabilities required to drive high performance and get organisational outcomes. The next one is diversity of teams. So, operating in a virtual environment with complicated technology, you're then also going to be dealing with geographies, time zones, cultural markers, life experience and work experience coming into a team which is going to be massively diverse. Different cultural norms, different linguistic bias, generational contrast, which I'll come to as a specific point in a minute. All of these things are only going to increase as organisations become leaner, more efficient, use more outsourcing, insourcing, contractors, virtual experts. These are what teams are becoming now, and that's only going to really accelerate as I see moving forward. So again, new set of leadership capability required to deal with that. And then the final one, multi-generational teams. Right now, in your team, you might have 2 or 3 generations represented. There's a big debate, certainly an active dialogue at the moment, about leading Gen Y and how different that is. I'm right on the cusp of Gen X and Gen Y, and I can absolutely relate to this. I can look at people who are 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me, age-wise, and then 5, 10, 15 years younger than me. There are dramatic differences in how those contexts impact the way that people want to be led and need to be led. Now, as people enter the workplace younger and younger, as participation in higher education continues to be more expensive, people are just going to want to get into the workplace younger. Also, they're going to be contributing to the workforce far later, through 60s and 70s, out of both need and obligation, but also desire and interest in staying involved and staying, active, contributing, right? So in the next few years, I think, are going to have far more teams that have got 4, 5, maybe even 6 generations represented. That is a very different leadership challenge to what we face now, especially again when you compound that with the virtual environment and with technology. So all of these leave some really complicated waters to be navigated for the leader looking at a career 10, 15 years ahead, maybe even 5 years ahead. So that's the end of today's broadcast. It's really just to draw attention to these key themes. And there's going to be some article series to follow, which I'll add into the notes as they get completed. And I suspect probably some more clips and some more detail on some of these key topics, certainly the now current challenges and the future ones. As always, I look forward to your comments, and thank you in advance for all of your contributions.